Oh, hey, what's happening there, YouTube? It's Brian House here for Housework, and today we are going to be putting together a very simple and very quick project, and that is the assembly of the Platen bracket and the D-plate and the wheels and all the hardware that comes in the Ultimate Bundle, so that this is actually going to aid you, hopefully, in building your revolution. And why I'm going so granular with this thing is that the Platen itself, the whole piece that is the D-plate, the wheels, the axles, the spacers, the Platen bracket itself, it's probably one of the most simple pieces of the grinder itself, but it's the most important. So if you don't do something right here, it's going to ultimately affect how the grinder works. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to make a video about building this thing, putting it all together, all the way down to the nuts and bolts and the actual welding to make it happen. Now, if you're not familiar with the Revolution 2x72 belt grinder project, this is a belt grinder that I designed out of necessity. I wanted a belt grinder that I could use in my workshop that had all the features and functionality of, say, a really high-end manufactured grinder, but didn't have the same cost associated with it. I couldn't afford a $2,000 and $3,000 grinder. I maybe had $1,000, $1,000 to throw into the thing, and I, figured it out. I basically sat down, learned CAD so I could figure this whole thing out, drew it all up, and in the process I shared it right here on YouTube, and you all gave me your suggestions, and then it kind of snowballed into a whole thing. And now we've built prototypes. We've built, it's actually being manufactured now. You can buy all the pieces, parts, and plans right on my website, housemade.us. You can build your own. And this is a project that is so near dear to my heart. I wake up every day and I think about it. And I just got to tell you, thank you. Thank you so much for supporting my work and everything I do right here on YouTube. It's just made my life so much better. So I thank you very much. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying about the Platen. The Platen itself, super important piece. It's the user-faced piece where you're going to spend 95% of your time using this tool. So a lot of people ask me on the regular, Brian, if I buy the plans, I see that you include the DXF cut sheets. DXF cut sheets are what you would pump into, say, a CNC laser or a water jet, and what that would allow is for the machine to actually cut the parts out. Yes, you can do that. I highly recommend, if you're going to do that, use laser or water jet. If you use plasma, which you can do, you're going to want to remove the holes for where the two wheels on the D-plate go in. And the reason is plasma just simply isn't accurate enough. It's going to leave a bevel, and that axle won't sit 90 degrees off the D-plate, and then your machine will just simply never track. Because those wheels will be all cattywampus and everything. So you just don't want to cut those holes with plasma. You can cut everything else, but leave those holes out. And then just drill them like using a drill press or a mill. Of course, I'd like it if you bought my laser cut parts. I think it's totally worth it. You can go to my website, housemade.us, and you can shop around for those parts. But some people are DIYers and they have the equipment. So if you have access to plasma, you can most definitely do it. But anyway, enough blathering on. Let's just go ahead and get into the build. Some of the tools you're going to need for this, you're going to need a welder. I like MIG. I use a Hobart Handler 190. You're going to need some welding magnets, an Allen wrench set. I just use a 3/16 Allen wrench. I got this cool little kit from Amazon that I bought. A couple of ratchets and a box end wrench, and I think that's pretty much it. So anyhow, screw it. Let's do it. Okay, so one of the first things I want to discuss is the wheels. Now, I don't sell wheels. I don't make wheels, but I know where to buy them. You can buy these from knifegrinderparts.com. When it comes to wheels, the devil's in the details with these, all right? So if you go online, you can go on eBay and Amazon, you can look at all kinds of wheels, right? And they all appear to look the same, but there's one major difference from an inexpensive wheel to a mid-level range Platen wheel, and that's the spacer that's down inside there. So it's a little tough to see, but you can see there's a spacer, and what that is it's a piece of rod or tube that goes between the two bearings that supports the bearings in between to stop side load. Okay, so when you go to bolt this onto your Platen, if you tighten it down too much, these two bearings will pinch and stop the wheel from turning. And that little spacer in there, not every manufacturer adds this. In fact, there's quite a few popular manufacturers out there that sell these types of wheels that don't include those spacers, and I'd be very suspect of that. I would not buy those wheels because of this. Just that one little detail will save you tons of trouble, because what's going to happen is you tighten it down. If there's no spacer in there and you tighten it down, these bearings get real hot. The wheels get real hot. They start to wear. So that's really important. So buy good wheels. I'll put a link down in the description. I have no affiliation with knifegrinderparts.com. I just have used their wheels and have had a great experience with them. All right, so these are all the pieces to the platen bracket. We're going to call this piece here a leg. We're going to call this piece here a foot. And what these do is they nest together in a way that allows you to set up like a 90-degree beveled angle here that will hold up this plate. So if you can imagine, you got two of these in place, and then it holds up this Platen Face bracket. This was a design that I worked on and refined and refined and refined. And when you look at designing and working with plate steel, you kind of have to come up with some creative solutions so that when you cut it, everything can be easily put together. So, ultimately when you buy the kit, you shouldn't have to do a ton of brain work with this thing. So let's get a little closer here, and I'll show you exactly where you need to pop your welds. All right, so these two pieces nest in together like this, and there's a little bit of play in them so that you can adjust to make sure that everything is set up correctly. But this little spot right here where this foot meets the leg is actually designed so you can pop a weld across there. And MIG weld just splats right across there and creates a nice solid union between these two pieces. Now, the other place you're going to want to put a weld is right here in the front. You can pop a weld right across here and easily grind that away. Some people have been popping welds up underneath, but that would require you to grind this down flat. So that's just something to consider. You can do it. You just want to really make sure that when you're done, you don't have any weld left over down here that's going to impede how flat this sits against the D plate. So let's put this together and pop a couple of welds. Now this first weld is a little bit tricky, so I like to use a vise as a third set of hands. Clamp down your foot. And if you got like a little refrigerator magnet, these kind of come in handy here. You place your leg up in there and a little refrigerator magnet up underneath there. And we will sort of position this in our vise. Now that we're set up, we're really able to grab our MIG and actually pop a weld right across the top there. Just a quick splat. Not very pretty, but it'll hold for now. Okay, so now that we got that one quick tack in there, not very pretty, but we can clean that up later. I've got some flap discs from Empire Abrasives that I'm going to be deploying here just to clean that up a little bit. But now that we've got it in there, we want to just make sure that it's sitting at 90 degrees off the table. Grab a square. Oh yeah, looks pretty dang good to me. The second one is always better, for whatever reason, no matter how many I do. Now let's just do a quick MIG weld across the front for some added structural integrity. That's what we're looking for. 90 degrees off the D plate once it's on. I've teamed up with Empire Abrasives, and they have some of the best abrasives I've used in my workshop. There's a link down in the description. If you click through, you'll get 10% off your first order. You know what they say, an angle grinder makes an amateur welder look like a decent welder. Okay, so here's the part that's probably going to seem a little bit counterintuitive, and that's you're going to want to grab your D-plate and actually bolt these guys up to it right now. Before you actually put the faceplate on, you want to get all of this lined up. It just makes everything so much simpler to line this up if it's not welded together. So you want to grab your D-plate and your hardware for that. This is included in the kit. These are, I think these are 1-inch quarter 20 bolts, and we're going to just simply bolt it all up and check for 90 degrees. Now you want to line this up so that the front part of this and the front part of the D-plate are right in line with each other on both of these. And then you're going to want to tighten them down. You're not going to tighten them down too much, just enough to where they're sort of locked into place, but you can still manipulate them. And now you're going to take this, the faceplate, set it flat down on your tabletop, and you're going to set this down on top of it and have the span, the equal distance between these two brackets. Okay. Then you're going to grab a welding magnet, or maybe even a couple of them, and lock it into place with a welding magnet. And what that allows you to do is get exactly 45 degrees off of this plate. Everything lined up. You can see now some pretty good power on those magnets. And you just want everything to kind of be nice and flush here and nice and flush there. All right. And you don't need to go crazy with the weld on this thing. Okay, you can weld it. I usually just put 3 small tacks, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 on the inside, and that's it. I don't go crazy with the weld because you really don't want this plate to warp. If you get all crazy and you start laying a real hot bead over here and over here, you could get cupping on this 1/4-inch plate. So just 3 quick tacks. Just put 2 in there for now, just in case we're off a square. So I'm going to check this against 45 here too. Yeah, it's just slightly off. Not a huge deal. I think we could probably get this to bend over if we really wanted it to. Not too bad. All right, now the fun begins. Let's bolt this thing all together. I like to throw it in a vise just to make it easy. In the hardware kit, you get some axles, spacers, washers, and depending on your wheels, you may not need all of these, or you may need more. These are just standard 1/2-inch flat washers. These are true 2-inch wheels from Knife Grinder Parts. So this is how I do it. Throw it in there. Oh, don't forget your brass spacer and a couple of washers. Throw it up on there. One more washer on the outside. And the locking nut. Grab your ratchet. You want to tighten it down, but not too tight. You want to just a little bit turn back on there. You don't want, like I said before, you put them on too tight, the wheel get too hot, but you don't want any play. So you want to be able to roll that wheel freely, but you don't want any side play here. It's about right. We can always adjust it later. Can be a little fiddly with that spacer in there, but just give it a second, tweak it around a bit, and get it all lined up. There she goes. Take your brass spacer, a couple of washers, it in. Washer on the outside. This washer might not be necessary, so if you don't have enough washers, you can always steal one from over here. I just like it because it seems safer to me, but what do I know? No play. All right. And the goal is to get everything nice and lined up with that platen. You could probably even get away with another washer in there if you want. You've got some room here if you like, but this is good enough for government work, as they say. All right, so we got her all welded up, the bracket in there, mounted, all the wheels bolted up. Everything's lining up real nice. And the last step is to mount it to the tooling arm. Now, this is a pretty straightforward step. We do include 2 spacers that will go and ride up along your tooling arm on this side. The reason why we include 2, even though you may not use them, is later if you decide you want to add another platen, maybe a soft platen or a wheel or contact wheel or whatever. These are good spacers to have around, and sometimes people don't weld up this pillar quite straight and the arm kind of leans out a little and you need a second spacer, so we include it in the kit. We're going to take our platen. We've got our hardware here. It comes in the hardware kit. Line up the spacers with the hole. Get this all lined up. And this is a threaded hole. I have another video on that where I show how I tap all the way through. Get that started. I got my fancy little ratchet, or my fancy little Allen wrench here. Don't do it too tight. Kind of want to leave some room so we can get the knob all set up. I include a knob in here, so if you decide you want to rotate the platen back, you have that option. Thread up the knob. That's started. Put the hardware on the other side, just in case. Cinch that up. All right, she's looking good. Now if you loosen everything up, you can adjust this to square however you want it. I really like this platen because of the big long face on it. Then also you can tilt it back and you can use this surface almost like in reverse. If you use this surface, you can use it almost like a surface grinder attachment, which I really like. It's not the same thing, granted, but I do really like this feature. You get everything lined up close enough. Real quick, let's talk about one last thing that's optional with this build, and that's adding a high carbon platen face to the actual bracket. Now, so I've seen some people do this with ceramic tile, glass. I mean, there's a whole bunch of options here. I just use a piece of 80 CRV2. I buy this from New Jersey Steel Baron. They have a great website where you can buy 2-inch wide high carbon steel. And then I heat treat it myself and, you know, obviously drill and tap these holes. These holes correlate with the holes that are on the platen bracket itself. And we include some 1/4-20 hardware to actually make this bolt up pretty quick. So real quick, I'm going to add that on here. And again, this is optional. You know, this is something that not a lot of people actually do. They just use the 1/4-inch plate of itself. They don't have to add anything to it. But my preference is always high carbon steel because it just doesn't wear as fast. So line it up. One of the things too to consider is how proud this is of the platen wheel. As you can see here, we're sitting quite a ways away. That's what these slots exist for, so we can loosen these and knock them back a little bit. So I just use a straight edge, and my preference is to have the face of the platen ride about the same as the outer edge of the top and bottom wheel. Just loosen this up, and now you can slide it in and out. Grab your square. She's good and close. Same thing on the bottom. Perfecto. Let's grab one of these fancy all ceramic Empire abrasives 2x72 belts. Throw it on there and see if she'll track. Ah, yeah. Dial it in just a little bit. You can see the belt is riding perfectly across the surface of this platen face. Right where we want it. Well, there you have it, guys. It looks like we have a fully functional 12 inches of love on the front face of this platen. This is a really, truly enjoyable thing for me. I actually have built numerous versions of this and prototyping and for production, and it never gets old. It's always a fun project, and using laser cut parts just makes it so much smoother and simpler. So if you're interested in buying the kit, you can go to my website, housemade.us, and you can find all the parts right there. If you got something out of today's video, make sure you click that thumbs up button, and if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and if you click that little bell, you'll get a notification every time I upload something to YouTube. There's many ways to support my channel. There's Buy Me a Coffee, there's Patreon. You can go to my website, housemade.us. You can buy parts, pieces, and plans for the Revolution 2x72 Belt Grinder project. You can listen to the podcast, Work For It. If you haven't checked that out, the Work For It podcast is something I've been having fun with for the last 6 months, and it's right there on the Makery Network. There'll be a link down in the description so you can find that show. There's also links for Empire abrasives in my Amazon store, and those things, when you click through to them, I get a little bit of a kickback from those manufacturers, and that helps support everything I'm doing right here in my workshop and studio. As always, guys, it was super fun hanging out with you in my workshop. I will hopefully see you on the next video. My name is Brian House, and this has been Housework.